Welcome back. Hi everyone, I'm Professor Mark Williams, and this is MATH051 Intermediate Algebra. These videos are designed to complement the videos that already exist on MyLabs Plus. If you go out to MyLabs Plus and look under additional media, you'll find that there are videos created by the textbook creators that lecture over all this material. I wanted to provide some additional video where I'm just solving problems and working through different problems. And so today we're going to be looking at sections 7.6 and 7.7 where we consider how to solve rational equations. And so let's just dive right in. Let's look at this video right here. But first, or this video, look at this equation right here. The first thing we want to do is isolate the radical on one side of the equal sign. So the first thing we need to do is to subtract a -5 from both sides. Doing that, then you have the square root of 4 minus x is equal to 3. Okay? Now, we want to get rid of the radical, and we know that one way we can do that is by squaring both sides. We want to square both sides, and you want to square a radical. And you say, well, what difference does it make if you square a radical? Well, let me show you why this works. Let's say that we have the square root of 5, and we square that. Well, we know that we can rewrite 5 as 5 to the 1/2 power. That's the same thing as the square root of 5 squared, right? Then that equals 5 to the 2 over 2. 2 over 2 is 1, or 5 to the 1, or 5. So any number under a radical that's squared will simply give you the number. So over here, this now becomes 4 minus x is equal to 3. Okay? Now, just looking at this, let's subtract 4 from both sides. And this is going to give you -x is equal to 3 minus 4, or a -1. So then x is equal to 1. And you multiply through by a -1. So x is a 1. But you have to be careful with these problems because of the radical. You always have to check your answers. And so checking this answer, just making sure this answer is correct. Putting in, you got 4 minus plus 5 is equal to 8. So you've got 4 minus 1 . Well, maybe by now you've already seen that I made a mistake in this problem. Right? Does anyone know where I made the mistake? Well, very simply. I squared this side, but I didn't square this side. So looking at this, this is actually a 9 right here. So 9 minus 4, that gives me a 5 right here, and then x then becomes a -5. So that completely changes what we're going to put in here. So we're going to put a -5 in here. Okay? So then that's going to give you the square root of 9 plus 5 is equal to 8. The square root of 9 is 3 plus 5 is equal to 8. So 8 equals 8, and so it checks. See? And even math professors from time to time can lose a square or miss something. But the thing is, by checking the answer, I immediately knew that I had a wrong answer. Because when I went up and plugged in the answer of 1 that I got, then I could easily look and see that this wasn't going to check. So this is why it's so important for you to check your answers, especially when you're dealing with radicals. So always remember, on equations, make sure you check the answers that you get. Because sometimes you'll either catch yourself in a mistake, or when you have multiple answers, then at least one of them sometimes will not fit into the domain, and then is not an answer that will actually work. It will not check. So that's kind of what section 7.6 is about. It's all about solving rational equations. Now, section 7.7 is about the imaginary unit, I. Hope that you've heard of this before, but the imaginary unit I is simply designed for us to be able to work with negatives under the radical. And so I is very simply designated as the square root of -1. Then I squared is equal to -1. Okay? So up until this point, we've been unable to solve a problem, for instance, like -4, the square root of -4. We've just simply said this is not a solvable problem because we didn't know what to do with the negative sign. But now we do know, okay, that -4 is really the same thing as -1, square root of -1 times 4. And what is the square root of -1? It's I. So this becomes I, and the square root of 4 becomes 2. So 2I. So the square root of -4 is 2I. Okay? And hopefully you've seen this before, but if you haven't, it's very simple. And knowing the definition, these are the ones, I'm going to write them here at the top of the board as we continue to solve problems. But looking at this, that I is the square root of -1, and I squared is equal to -1, then we're going to be able to solve all kinds of different problems that were very similar to the problems we've already solved. So let me go ahead and grab a few of them, and we'll see if we can't solve some of these. For instance, just wanting to be able to solve a problem, just subtracting, or for instance, -3i minus 5 minus 2i. Okay? Well, in the same way that we combine like terms, we can combine the i's as well. So we have 3i, and getting rid of the parentheses, minus 5 plus 2i. So 3i plus 2i, it gives you 5i minus 5. Very simply, you combine like terms. What about multiplying? We can multiply like terms. Let's look at 3i times 2i plus 7. Okay? Well, multiplying through, using the distributive property that you learned earlier in the semester, first term is 3i times 2i. The second term is 3i times 7. So this gives you 6i squared plus 21i. Okay? And then we know that I squared is -1, so you get -6 plus 21i. Very simple. So that's a monomial times a binomial. What about two binomials? Okay, well, we've dealt with all of these before. These are very interesting the way these work out at times. But let's consider just for instance 5 plus 2i times 3 minus 3i. Okay, this is another FOIL. So looking at another FOIL, first term is 5 times 3. The outer term is a -5 times 3i. The inner term is a positive 6. Well, let's just not skip a step. A positive 3 times 2i. And then the last term is a -2i times 3i. Very interesting. So the first term is 15. The second term is a -15i. The third term is a 6i. And then we have this -6i squared. Okay? And so these are like terms, so we can combine them. So you have 15 minus -15 plus 6 is 9i minus, now we know that I squared is -1. So this becomes positive 6. So 15 plus 6 you have 21 minus 9i. See how easy that is? It's all the same thing, but now we simply have a way to solve these problems. Now, last thing that's very important. Just like with radicals, the final form of any equation cannot have an I in the denominator. You cannot have an imaginary number. That's what this is called. And so let's look at this and see if we can eliminate the I. So first of all, let's start with something along the lines of 3 over 2i. Okay, well that's not in simplified form. You have to eliminate the I from the denominator. That's simple to do. Let's just multiply top and bottom by I. We're going to multiply top and bottom by I. And so you're going to get 3i over 2i squared. And we know that I squared is negative 1. So now this becomes negative 3i over 2. Because the I squared becomes negative. So now you've eliminated the I from the denominator. One last example. This is an easier one. What if we have something more like 2 plus I, let's say 2 plus 2i over 3 minus I. Well, we don't want to have an I in the denominator. So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 3 plus I. Just like we did when we were dealing with radicals. We're going to multiply top and bottom by 3 plus I. And so looking at these, the top one is a FOIL. Again, these are FOILs. So you've got 2 times 3. And instead of writing it all out, most of you are probably able to just do this. 2 times 3 is 6. That's the first term. The outer term, 2 times I, plus 2i. The inner term is plus 3 times 2, 6i. The last term, okay, is a plus 2i squared. And then the bottom here. You've got 3 times 3 is 9. The outer term is a minus 3i. The inner term, the outer term is positive 3i. The inner term is negative 3i. And the last term is a negative I squared. Okay? Well, these terms clearly cancel. So let's see what we have at the top. At the top we have 6 plus 8i, but then we know this is a negative 1 because I squared is negative 1, so minus 2. And then on the bottom we have 9 minus, but I squared is a negative 1. So this one, you have 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 minus 8i over 10. Now honestly, that's not in this most reduced form because you can factor a 2. So we're going to have to factor a 2 out of this. Out of the top, you get 2, and that's going to give you 2 over, and we could factor a 4, but we don't want to do that because we want to be able to cancel with a 10. So it's going to leave you 2 over 4i, all of that over 10. And then the 2 cancels into the 10 and leaves a 5, and so your final answer is 2 minus 4i over 5. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. Let's give you an opportunity to see some more problems worked out. And as always, feel free to contact me, text me, email me, whatever you need to do. And we just want to see you have the greatest success you can have. So keep up the great work and good luck.